In the quiet suburbs of Minneapolis, Amira Malik lives as a widowed Arabic teacher who bakes baklava and dotes on her grandchildren, despite facing prejudice for her hijab. When mocked by bikers at a convenience store, they unknowingly confront Sparrow, a former CIA asset with a photographic memory who must now return to the shadows of espionage to protect her family and expose a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of government. Chapter 1. They laughed at her accent and hijab, whispering "terrorist" under their breath, until she calmly mentioned a classified operation code, a forgotten safe house address in Damascus, and the exact time of a covert extraction that made the Border Patrol officer's face drain of all color. Amira Malik adjusted her burgundy hijab with weathered hands, her gaze unwavering as the officer's smirk dissolved into shock. The line at the Minnesota-Canadian border checkpoint had grown long, the afternoon sun beating down mercilessly. "How do you know about Operation Nightfall?" he whispered, his previously mocking tone now brittle with tension. Amira merely smiled, the kind of smile that carried decades of secrets. At 63, she had grown accustomed to the suspicious glances, the exaggerated scrutiny of her identification, the random security checks that followed her through airports and border crossings. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," she suggested, her voice carrying the faint melody of her native Syrian accent. The other officers exchanged glances. The one who had been making jokes about her prayer rug now stood rigid, uncertain. Behind her, travelers shifted impatiently, unaware of the sudden power shift. To them, Amira was just another aging immigrant woman in modest dress, someone easy to dismiss, to look through rather than at. The senior officer gestured toward a side door. "This way, ma'am." As she followed, leaning slightly on her cane, Amira caught fragments of urgent whispers. "Call Washington," and "clearance level." What none of them realized as they led her into the sterile interview room was that they had just encountered a woman who had spent 30 years as one of the CIA's most valuable assets in the Middle East, a ghost in the machine, a shadow that had shaped history without leaving footprints. And Amira hadn't mentioned Operation Nightfall by accident. She had recognized something in the lead officer's eyes, something familiar, something dangerous. What was Thomas Reeves, a man who should have been in a high-security prison, doing in a border patrol uniform? And why had his hand twitched toward his weapon the moment he saw her face? Some ghosts, it seemed, recognized each other instantly. Chapter 2. The small back office of the police station felt smaller with each passing minute. The biker had vanished, leaving Amira with two stern-faced officials who introduced themselves as Homeland Security. "Mrs. Malik," the woman said, consulting a tablet. "You've lived in Minneapolis for 12 years, correct? Teaching Arabic at the community center?" Amira nodded, her fingers tracing the wooden handle of her cane. "I also make excellent baklava for the mosque fundraisers. You should try it sometime." The male agent didn't smile. "What we're trying to understand is how you know classified information about Operation Nightfall, a mission that officially never existed." Amira studied them both, weighing decades of silence against present danger. The words she'd kept locked away for so long now scratched at her throat, demanding release. "Before I was Amira Malik, the widow who volunteers at refugee centers," she began slowly, "I was Sparrow." The name landed like a stone in still water. The female agent's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. "Impossible," the man whispered. "Sparrow was a legend, a ghost asset who fed intelligence to 3 American presidents during the most volatile decades in Middle Eastern politics," Amira finished, "who walked into terrorist camps with nothing but her wits and walked out with information that saved thousands of lives." The room fell silent. Outside, the regular bustle of the police station continued, officers unaware of the collision of worlds occurring just behind a nondescript door. "Thomas Reeves recognized me," Amira continued, "and I recognized him. Damascus, 2003. He wasn't a biker then. He was CIA until he sold information that got 5 agents killed." The female agent leaned forward. "Reeves is dead. His body was recovered after the ambush." Amira's laugh was soft, carrying no humor. "Is that what they told you? Then perhaps you should explain why a dead man just threatened me in a convenience store." Her words hung in the air like smoke. Through the small window, she watched a motorcycle speed away from the precinct, its rider hunched low. "He's running," she said quietly. "And trust me, that's only the beginning of your problems." The two agents exchanged glances, suddenly understanding they were no longer the interrogators in this room. They were being briefed. Chapter 3. Shadows and Truths. Within an hour, the police station had transformed into an operational command center. Amira sat with a cup of tea, watching as agents in dark suits moved with urgency, their hushed voices forming a tense undercurrent. "He's gone off-grid," announced Agent Keller, the woman who had interviewed her. "The entire motorcycle gang has scattered. His identity credentials were perfect forgeries." Amira wasn't surprised. Reeves was always meticulous. It's what made him valuable, until it made him dangerous. A silver-haired man entered, his presence immediately commanding the room. Director Warren Ellis of Counterintelligence. Amira recognized him from briefings years ago, though he wouldn't know her face. "Mrs. Malik," he said, taking a seat across from her. "I must admit, when they told me Sparrow had surfaced at a convenience store confrontation with bikers, I was skeptical. Your file was archived in our most classified section. Most believe you were a composite, several agents operating under one code name." "A useful misconception," Amira replied. "People underestimate what a woman in a hijab can see and hear, especially in regions where women are expected to be invisible." Ellis nodded slowly. "The question remains, why now? You've been officially retired for 15 years. Amira's fingers tightened around her teacup. "Because Reeves recognized me, which means others will too. And because Operation Nightfall wasn't just about the extraction. It was about what we found in that safe house. Evidence of a network that extended into Western intelligence agencies. We never identified all the players." On a nearby screen, surveillance footage showed the convenience store. Amira pointed to a nondescript van that had pulled up shortly after the bikers arrived. "That vehicle. Check its contents." Ellis raised an eyebrow but nodded to an analyst, who began typing furiously. "How can you possibly—" "Because I saw the same vehicle in Aleppo 20 years ago. Different paint, same purpose, weapons, smuggling." The analyst looked up, face pale. "Sir, that van was flagged at 3 police checkpoints last week but cleared each time. The driver had diplomatic credentials." Ellis's expression hardened. "Issued by whom?" "By us, sir. State Department." The room fell silent. Amira set down her teacup with a quiet finality. "You never found all the moles, Director Ellis. And now they've activated again." Outside the window, evening shadows stretched across the parking lot. Somewhere in those lengthening shadows, a man who was supposed to be dead was making phone calls, setting wheels in motion. And Amira, who had spent a lifetime hiding in plain sight, had finally stepped into the light. "I'll need access to my old files," she said, "and protection for my family." Ellis's eyes narrowed. "Family? My daughter and granddaughters in Minneapolis. Because once word spreads that Sparrow is talking—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood what happened to people who knew too much. "What exactly did you see in that Damascus safe house, Mrs. Malik?" Amira met his gaze steadily. "The real question, Director, is who saw me?" Chapter 4. The Reckoning. The safe house in Minneapolis was nondescript, a 2-story colonial with faded blue shutters and a well-kept lawn. Inside, Amira sat with her daughter Layla and 2 granddaughters, protected by agents stationed throughout the property. 3 days had passed since the biker confrontation. "You never told me," Layla said quietly after the girls had gone to bed. "All those years, I thought you were just a translator." Amira's weathered hands wrapped around a mug of mint tea. "I was protecting you. The less you knew, the safer you were. And now? Now the past has found us, and silence is no longer protection." A soft knock interrupted them. Agent Keller entered with a tablet. "We've located Reeves. Facial recognition picked him up at a motorcycle clubhouse in Chicago, meeting with this man." She handed Amira the tablet. The face staring back made Amira's breath catch. Senator Howard Blake, chairman of the Intelligence Committee. "This explains much," Amira murmured. "Blake was station chief in Beirut when the intelligence leaks began. I suspected someone high-ranking, but never had proof." Keller nodded grimly. "His security clearance gives him access to everything, including the protocols to identify deep-cover assets like you." The weight of understanding settled between them. This wasn't just about Reeves or Operation Nightfall anymore. This was about a decades-long infiltration reaching the highest levels of government. "We move tomorrow," Director Ellis announced, entering the room. "The FBI is preparing to take Blake into custody, but we need concrete evidence connecting him to the Damascus operation." Amira set down her tea. "You have me. With all respect, Mrs. Malik, the testimony of a foreign asset, however valuable. "Is not what I'm offering," she interrupted. "What I'm offering is this." From beneath her hijab, she extracted a small memory card, preserved in a sealed plastic case. "In our world, we all keep insurance. This contains encrypted files documenting every meeting, every order, every transaction that passed through that Damascus safe house, including videos of Blake receiving payment for classified information." Ellis stared at the tiny device. "You've had this for 20 years? I entrusted it to my handler before I retired. When he died last year, it returned to me. I've carried it every day since, knowing its time would come." The next morning, the operation unfolded with precision. As Amira watched the news from the safe house, the headlines flashed. "Senator Blake arrested on espionage charges. International smuggling ring exposed." What the headlines didn't show was the quiet interrogation room where Reeves, confronted with evidence from Amira's files, broke down and confessed everything. They didn't show Senator Blake's face when agents played the Damascus videos for him. And they certainly didn't show Amira Malik, sitting in her kitchen a week later, teaching her youngest granddaughter how to make baklava, the rhythmic motion of her hands revealing nothing of their deadly skill. "Grandma?" the child asked. "Are you really a hero like they said on TV?" Amira smiled, brushing phyllo dough with melted butter. "I'm just an old woman who remembers things, Habibti. Sometimes that's all it takes to change the world." Later that evening, Director Ellis visited, bringing official papers, her complete exoneration, guarantees of permanent protection, a substantial consulting fee for her assistance. "The President wishes to thank you personally," he said. Amira shook her head. "I don't need recognition. I need promise that my family will live in peace, without shadows following them." Ellis nodded solemnly. "You have my word." After he left, Amira sat on her porch swing, watching the sunset paint the Minneapolis skyline gold. For decades, she had lived between worlds, neither fully American nor entirely Syrian anymore, navigating the spaces where cultures collided. She had been underestimated, dismissed, rendered invisible by those who saw only her age, her accent, her hijab. But in that invisibility, she had found her greatest strength. "They never see us coming," she whispered to herself with a small smile, "until we're already there." In a world that had tried to write her out of history, Amira Malik had become the one who remembered everything, and, in remembering, had finally set herself free. Wow! What a story! And there is more coming. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss a new stories.